Does this look like you? Always ruining date night with the work call and leaving your partner upset again? Let us take your call so you can get your life back. The JRA Contact Center. Make more money and live a better life.
You got more money rolling in, you want to continue growing your business professional, you want to take advantage of the right things to do, and you want to avoid the wrong things. Our video training series is out. It's been released. It's been out for a couple months now. Now is the time for you guys to go ahead and figure out, what do I need to be doing throughout this busy season so I can make as much money as possible and really go into the slow season, which you can't ever forget about slow season. Slow season's coming in, 8-9 months. I want to be able to roll right into that in a good position. That video training series will help you out. All right, so today we want to talk about how to build an amazing junk removal team. And listen, you're not going to have a great junk removal business, a business that can run without you, if you don't have people. So the very, very, very first thing I want to drive home to you is, listen, as soon as possible, you have to be bringing on truck team members. You can't rely on yourself to do jobs. You can't rely on friends and family members to do jobs, because at some point, friends and family members are just going to be tired of working with you. So you need good, consistent work, because what you're doing, if you're watching this show, you're out there wanting to build a great, amazing junk removal company. Getting people nowadays is tough. So especially some of these stimulus packages that are going out, what was it, $800 or $12, $14, something like that. There's a check that just went out per person. Then you have unemployment. There's a lot of people that can sit there and make almost as much money from the government through unemployment as they can by going out and actually getting a job. And maybe if they make a little less, well, they're not having to go out there and work. They can sit around home, do whatever, and that just satisfies some people. But there are great people out there to be found if you consistently know the ways to get them, and if you stick with it, if you don't give up on it too soon. So the very first thing, make clear, people are required. When you guys first open, because a lot of you guys are looking at first opening up, what you need to make when you first open are 2 new hires. That is if you yourself are on the truck. When you first open, 2 new hires. Why 2? The main reason you always want 2 when you first get started, because you're not going to have enough work for 2. When you first get open, you're not going to have enough work. But 1, the number 1 is your enemy. And if I can make this clear, this is a lesson I learned the hard way, and sometimes I still make this mistake. You never want to rely on one of anything in business. You want to be number 1, but to get to number 1, you have to avoid number 1. So you don't want one of anything. Because at some point in time, that team member you hire, that employee, that guy you're just so psyched about, you think he's going to be amazing, you think he's going to be honest, and he's going to be a great representative of your company to customers, and he's going to quote jobs well, and he's going to respect your equipment, and you just feel really, 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 really good about him. That one guy, there's a chance, almost a guarantee on your first couple hires, your first 2 hires, first 5 hires, there's going to be a few of those that are just not good. You're going to get really psyched up. You're going to think they're amazing. You're going to think that this is exactly what you're looking for. You've been nervous all along. This hiring process, when you first get to the point where you're hiring people, it's a nerve-wracking process. One, you're worried, is the business going to continue to come in where I can actually pay these guys? How can I keep them busy? You want to make sure that you have enough work for them, so it's worthwhile for them to have a job and they don't go looking for somewhere else. You're also nervous because you've probably never done this hiring process before. You've gone through a lot of different applications. It's no fun. Nobody enjoys the hiring process. Nobody at all. The employee doesn't enjoy it. The employer doesn't enjoy it. So it's a long, drawn-out process. You might have taken days or weeks to get a decent number of people or a decent applicant that's come through that you're ready to hire. You could have gone through, if you schedule 5 or 6 appointments for junk removal for an interview, I almost guarantee you that half of them are not going to show. You schedule 6 interviews, 3 are going to show. of those three, one might be decent, and that's a might. You might have to actually go 2 rounds of 6 before you ever hit on one. So anyway, you've got all this time invested in it, you got this effort invested in it, you got this stress invested in it, and as soon as you make a job offer and they accept, at that point, you're elated. You're like, all right, now I can go into bigger and better things. Now I can really look to grow my business and make some more money. I can turn off this Indeed ad or whatever I'm running, and I can save myself money. The problem is I've had people show up that you thought were going to be good on that very first day. Might not even show up on the first day. But if they do show up on the first day, halfway through, we've had people say, you know what, this job isn't for me. I'm heading, I got to leave. So one of the best things you can do is kind of a little bit of a mindset control here and understand that, really understand that these hires, they may or may not work out. You don't want to get too excited when you make that new hire because it might not work out. All right, so avoid one. You start out with 2 hires because you now have a backup, but you do need to keep these hires busy. You need to make sure you keep them busy. So even though you don't have enough work, you're going to tell them, hey, I'm going to get you around 25, 30 hours a week. And for a lot of people out there, that's enough. I'm going to get you a few days, a lot of hours over a few days, and that's pretty good. Sometimes you're going to need them putting out yard signs, door hanger flyers, volunteering at donation centers. This is an excellent way to get a good relationship with the donation center. Show up to Habitat for Humanity. Goodwill's normally not down for it, but Habitat for Humanity or some of these other donation centers, these charities, and say, hey, what I'd like to do is I'd like to volunteer my guys to help bring stuff in to your facility. So when people drop stuff off, we got strong guys. I'd like them to be able to bring stuff in. You know, in exchange, I'd love for them to be able to wear maybe a company shirt, a junk removal company shirt. If not, if they can just pass out business cards and say, hey, you know, we work with this charity often. We bring stuff here. If you have something on the second floor, so keep in mind, most charities are not going to go on the second floor to remove stuff. So if they actually will go to the customer's home, they're not going to go on the second floor. The other hang up, and the reason this whole volunteer at charity thing works amazing, is because charity pickups, if they're doing a pickup, a lot of times it's 2 weeks out. They're going to do a route, and they're going to hit you when you're at your route. The stuff has to be on the first floor, and they'll bring it out to the truck, and it's normally no charge, but they might not take everything either. So a junk removal company will take everything, we'll keep the good stuff, and then we'll donate it. So it's an excellent opportunity to get your company out amongst the people that might potentially hire you. And the other thing that's amazing at volunteering at these charities is making social media posts about it. Hey, we're going to be at Habitat for Humanity in Kalamazoo, Michigan on so-and-so date between so-and-so time, helping bring stuff in and just kind of, you know, helping the store out. So if you really leverage your social media, if you have outgoing guys that are passing out business cards, have some business cards where they can actually write their name on the card. And then what you can say, hey, if any of these customers book, I'm going to give you $50. So hand out business cards, be nice, write your name on that card. If they schedule, I'm going to give you $50. So that is an excellent way to keep your guys busy when you first get started. But the key thing here, number one, is your absolute enemy. You do not want one of anything in business, especially on people. Get yourself 2 new hires. Get yourself 2 new hires when you first get started. Guys, if we have any questions at all that come up throughout this show, place them in the comments section on here. I'll make sure to get to them. We'd love to answer any questions you have. It can be around the team. It can be around the junk removal business. It can be around anything you want, and I'll try and give you my take on it. So we'd love to hear any questions you got. Thanks for joining us, by the way. It's every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern. Let's Talk Junk. All right, so when do you need to have new people? When do you need to hire new people? So as a general rule, you need one team member for every $8,000 to $9,000 in monthly revenue. Every 8 to 9K in monthly revenue. If you follow this formula, you'll be staffed pretty well. So one team member for every 8 to 9,000 in revenue. So why is there this gap? Well, that's because if you're in New York City, and it might even be a little high, it might even be more like 8 to 9,500. If you're in New York City, you know, Manhattan, or you're in Los Angeles County, or you're in some area where your expenses are a bit higher. Your revenue is going to be a little bit higher. You're going to pay a little bit more in those areas too, but you'll be amazed. It's crazy. Some of these areas it's really expensive to live in. You look at what your junk removal companies are paying guys in, in more expensive areas, and it's just a little bit more than what we're paying in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is not an extremely expensive area to live. But anyway, your revenue is going to be a little bit higher here, but it's 8 to 9K a month, and that'll hit you about right. Now, here's something that's really, really important to understand. We tell our team members right from the bat, you're going to average somewhere around 30 hours a week. So you're probably sitting there thinking, well, shoot, that's not even a full-time job. And it's not. And you're like, well, some people want full-time hours. And a lot of people do, but here's what we found. What we found is at 30 hours a week, this is hours, by the way, at 30 hours a week, most people are pretty daggone happy. They're not feeling overworked. They're making enough money that they're satisfied. The tips, you always have to remember, these guys can earn very, very good tips, hundreds of dollars a week in tips. So at 30 hours a week, they're pretty happy, and they're not getting burnt out in the summer. Because what used to happen all the time, invariably, when we were running junk doctors, we still own junk doctors, but years ago, we talk about the video training series, this is one of the lessons we learned. Years ago, guys would tell us all the time, hey, I want to work as many hours as I can. I want to work 50 hours, 60 hours a week. Give me everything you've got. I'm your guy. I'm tough. I'm going to do it. I don't care about the heat. I don't care about the cold, whatever. I don't care about the hard work. I'm going to make this work because I'm going to make it, I'm going to make a lot of money, and I want to make a lot of money. Well, invariably what would happen is we'd give them those hours, and they were happy. We were paying more also because we're paying time and a half on overtime. And then all of a sudden they weren't happy. And the problem is they won't tell you. They won't come to you and say, hey, I need these hours cut back. It's all of a sudden they're like, I'm sick of work. I got to find another job. Because they don't look at your job as a 30-hour, as how their life would be or the job would be at 30 hours a week. They look at it at 60 hours a week. My back's sore. I've got cuts. I'm sunburned. I'm just flat worn out. I don't have time to spend with my spouse, my girlfriend, boyfriend maybe. I don't have time, and they just completely shut down, and they don't think logically. They quit. They find another job, and now you're out of an employee. So it's very, very important. Limit your hours. Even if they tell you that you want more, limit them to around 30 hours a week. And if you do that, you're going to keep a good crew for a good period of time. What kind of question we got?
So we got Rich and Nick. They said what is the average rate for workman's comp?
Well, that's really going to vary kind of throughout the country. As a percentage, when you first get started, is a percentage of payroll. So the way they do, as you guys know, the way they do workers' comp, it's out of every, say $100, out of every $100 you pay X percent of payroll. Most companies throughout the country, when they first get started, you're going to pay somewhere around $15 for every $100 in payroll for your workers' comp. So it's 15%. If you've been in business for a couple of years, about 2 years is normally what you need. After about 2 years, if you haven't had any claims, or at least any major claim, and they consider a major claim to be over $2,000, if you haven't had any claim, or especially any major claim, or especially any claims, then your rate's going to start coming down. So let's break this down just a little bit here. Junk Doctors pays, again, our junk removal company, we pay about 5.5%, 6% workers' comp. Now, it had ballooned at one point because we had a few injuries. We had our workers' comp, a guy was demoing a shed one time, and he reached up and he thought he had loosened up. He thought he had loosened up a piece of metal roofing on the shed, and he hadn't. And he grabbed it, and he wasn't using cut-proof gloves like he was supposed to. And when he grabbed that thing and he yanked, that piece of metal sliced into his hand, severed a ligament. We had to take him to the emergency room. He was bleeding like you wouldn't, like crazy. Had to take we had an old rag or something like that. We just tightened around his hand to get him there because, I mean, this thing was just gushing out blood. And we got him in the emergency room and all. They got him all stitched up, fixed up. He probably had probably 6 or 8 different appointments over the next month. He was out of work for probably a quarter. All told, I think it was like $16,000 in medical expenses, and there was maybe like 10 grand. The 10 grand might be off, but there was 66% of whatever he normally earned over that like 3-month time frame, workers' comp paid out. So that sat there, that hurt our experience mod. We also had a guy that did a fraudulent workers' comp claim against us, and that individual said his back had hurt. He said he lifted up a bookshelf up into the back of the truck, and he hurt his back. It paid out something like $28,000 before the insurance company finally, had finished their investigation, determined this guy had actually made a similar claim for another company years in the past. So they turned around, they went after him to gain that money back. But in the meantime, our experience mod had been hurt. Now it was readjusted later on once it found that, hey, this was a fraudulent claim, but it hurt us. So at one point we were paying probably, it was like 55 grand a year on workers' comp, and it's somewhere around, even though our business has grown, it's like maybe 28 grand, something like that now, 30 grand because of that. So your experience mod, workers' comp, and I don't want to go too far off subject on this, but this is an excellent thing to cover. The way workers' comp works, work comp, experience mod. All right, the standard is 1. 1 equals standard. So this means a typical company, and where you're going to start when you first get going is you're going to start, you're going to have an experience mod of 1. So what happens if you get a claim? If you get a claim and this mod, I'm not going to go into how they actually figure the mod, but if they go in and they say, you know what, your mod is now 1.4, that means you're going to pay 40% more than the standard rate. So let's say the standard rate is 10%. And this is low. It's going to be higher than this. At 10%, if your rate comes in a mod at 1.4, you're going to be paying 14%. But if you come in at a 0.6 mod, you're going to pay 40% less. So now your mod is going to come in at 6%. And again, this is just, Junk Doctors is just under this. We're about 5.5%. So that's how this works. So as you can see, let's just say right now you're, through the course of the year, you're at $10,000 for workers' comp. If you are at a 1.4, you're going to be paying $14,000. If you're at a 0.6, you're going to be paying $6,000. That's how workers' comp works. The only way to get a lower workers' comp rate is to get started getting workers' comp, because all this is time. All this is time. So if you guys aren't running workers' comp now, go ahead and get that thing fired up. As you grow your business, you are really, really, really exposing yourself if you're operating without workers' comp. The other thing important on workers' comp is don't cover yourself as a general rule. At least that's normally what I recommend, because hopefully you're going to be careful and just not go out there and get injured, and you'll save yourself some money there. But keep in mind, if you do get injured, your health insurance covers your medical bills, but your missed time off, that's not covered. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right. Great question there. We got any other questions?
Yeah, Rich and Nick said, so 18.6% with no claims after a couple of years in business sounds high.
18.6%. Yes, it does. Send Matt. What's an email address we can use? Again, just a random one where they can.
Just Matthew@junkra.com.
Okay. I tell you what. Actually, you've got y'all have Junk Police. Y'all have got my email address. I think you do. Shoot me over an email. I got an insurance contact that I can get y'all that we're hooking up some people that work with JRA on. He can shop around and he might be able to get something pretty good for you. He does pretty much the entire country. I don't know. We have maybe 10 or 12 people working with him recently, and everybody's been really, really happy. He also writes a lot of the J-Dog franchises kind of throughout the country, so he's very, very used to junk removal. That sounds high. No claims, 18.6%. Obviously, it varies area to area, but yeah, I think you might be in the wrong category. Sometimes they'll put you in a category that's a higher rate simply because the junk removal category doesn't exist. So shoot me an email. I'll get you that contact. Thanks, guys.
And Code 3 Junk Removal said, is that full-time 40 hours you're talking about?
Full-time, 30 hours. So we want to limit employees, team members, to around 30 hours. We've just found if you're running up on 40, the problem is at 40 hours, a lot of times you don't have enough people. So if you get really, really busy, all of a sudden that 40 hours is going to turn into 50 hours. And then once you cross that 40 mark, that's when you start to see burnout. And what we found is if people work at 30, they do a good job, they can get enough tips, they're normally pretty happy. They might want to make a little more money, but then they're like, you know what, to me, this extra 10 hours I have off is nice. And from an employer standpoint, it's great because you have a few more people where you're not as reliant on the people that you have. So you won't, in aviation, I talk about racing and flying all the time. So those of you that aren't interested in racing and flying, just quit listening to this, but this is relevant. In aviation, in piston airplane aviation, so that's anything that's not a jet, there's pretty much two of almost everything other than an engine. If your entire engine goes out, you're going to glide down. But on your engine, one of the main ways aircraft engine fires is through a magneto. And there's two magnetos. So if you lose one magneto, that engine at least still keeps working. It operates on a reduced efficiency. It's not as powerful, but it's at least not running. Whereas if it had just one magneto, or if it was using a more up-to-date electrical system like an automobile, there's not that redundancy. And that plane, depending on what kind of plane it is, it's either going to have a nice gentle glide down, or if you're in something like an aerobatic airplane, it's going to fall like a rock. So it's very, very important to have that redundancy, and that's limiting it to 30 is going to help you out there. All right, guys. So, hey, any great questions there. Code 3 junk removal, junk police. Code 3 out of Arizona, I believe. And then junk police up in the Philly, New Jersey area, kind of up in there, D.C., somewhere in there. I know that's a big difference. But I really appreciate y'all messaging in. All right. So add new people, we talked about every $8,000 to $9,000 in revenue. The next really, really important thing is navigators. This isn't 100% correct, but navs are long-term navigators. Let's put long-term. Long-term navs are pretty much useless. Long-term navs are pretty much useless. Why is that? Well, they can't drive, they can't quote. So as soon as you hire somebody, make them train them on being a TL. Train TL ASAP. Because again, all right, what do you want? You want redundancy, you want flexibility. If one guy leaves, you want somebody else that can step in his place. If somebody gets injured, if somebody wants a vacation, if they get sick, whatever, you have to have somebody that's going to step back in. So what I see sometimes is training people is hard. So when you hire somebody, you actually work harder when you first hire that person before things get easier. And when you as the business owner, you got a lot going on. You got a tremendous amount going on. And honestly, it's easier if you're on the truck still to just go out there and stay on the truck and drive and quote the jobs, and your nav just be help you out doing the grunt work. That's the easiest thing. So the problem is at some point you will get sick, you will get injured, you'll want to take a vacation, and then, or if you're relying on another team leader, the same thing's going to apply. You need a lot of people that can do your job. So when we hire somebody, one, they have to have a driver's license with a decent driving record, because if you don't want to get them added and all of a sudden just running up your insurance cost. They got to have pretty good personality. And then we require except under special circumstances, our navs, within 90 days of starting, our navs should have become qualified to be a TL. That doesn't mean they're TLing all the time, but they should know how to quote and they should be able to drive. Otherwise, we actually knock their pay down. So when we come in here and we talk about pay structure, what's the pay structure? So pay structure, we do something a little unique. Here's what we do over at the JR and the A and Junk Doctors. The first thing we do is we start them out $2 an hour. We basically start them out at TL pay. We start out at TL pay. We give them 90 to reach TL. And then if they do, after 90, they get a $1 an hour raise. at minimum $1 an hour raise. If they did not achieve after 90 days TL status, deduct $2 an hour or lower their pay by $2 an hour. So in Raleigh, North Carolina, or in North Carolina in general, Raleigh, Charlotte, Greensboro, the three markets where we actually own our company and operate a junk removal business. In those areas, we're able to start guys out about $14 an hour. If they become a TL, they go to 15. We have some guys making 21 plus tips. So plus tips, a lot of these guys, I mean, we got some guys making 40 grand plus. A few of our TLs probably, made over $40,000, you count in tips, and some probably made a little bit more than that. But which is pretty good money for this type of work, and this type of job, fairly low stress. So this is really important. After 90 days, $1 an hour raise minimum if they become a TL. And this could happen before, by the way. So if somebody's a TL in a month, raise them on up then. And then if not, deduct $2 an hour. The other part of this is on the nav end of things. Their hours might get cut. If we find other people in there that they're doing better, they're going to get more hours. Which brings me up another very, very good point here. So when it comes to people, with your junk removal team, you do want to be very, very, very fair. You want to do exactly what you say you're going to do. You want to be understanding. Hey, if somebody's got something going on in their life, you got to find a way to give them some time. You got to find a way to give them some space. If they're not feeling good, you want to try and extend out to them basic human courtesy and, realize they've got a life outside of work and they got things going on outside of work. But at the same time, you got to look at performance. So you give them that and all, and then you look and say, you know what, am I being reasonable? Am I being fair? And are they not performing? And if they're not performing, then at some point you either cut their hours back, you get rid of them, or at some point you eventually do both. So there's two principles we've got in terms of hiring. One, always be hiring. Always have a job ad open. Now, at some point, you might cut back how much you're spending on these job ads if you've got a good crew together, and you'll also get very, very selective on who you actually hire. So when you got a really good crew together and they've got plenty of work, you get very selective. But if you got a superstar that comes in, you find a way to put them on your team. Which brings up the next thing. Treat it like a sports team. Sports teams, professional sports teams, a pro sport team, professional sports teams take care of their players. They have major investments in them. They want to see them succeed. But if somebody isn't performing, they don't get minutes. And if they don't get minutes and they don't perform for a long enough period of time, they get dropped. And they no longer make any money. And that's very, very much how we try and run junk doctors. Any company I'm involved with. We've always got hiring open, and we're fair to everybody. We want to be motivational to people. Hey, what can you do to get to the next step? But at the same time, it's performance. It's all about performance. Yeah, we're great human beings and all like that, but if we're just giving you a job just because we don't want to let you go because we think we're being nice, we're doing a few things. One, we're not being fair to you because there is a perfect job that you're actually going to like out there that you could go out and find, and we're keeping you from doing that. Because if somebody doesn't perform at a job, 99.99% of the time, they don't like it. Even if they do like it and they're not capable, there's a job out there, they're going to be more capable, they can advance, they can eventually make more money, and it's just going to be more fulfilling to them. So we're holding them back. The second thing is you're holding your organization back. Your entire organization is being held back. Everybody working in your company could potentially make more money if the company was making more money, if we were getting more production out of the individual that's struggling. It also brings everybody down. The third thing is a team member that's not performing drags everybody down the toilet with them. So very, very, very quickly, if you identify somebody that's struggling, you just recently hired them and they have a bad attitude, they're just not performing, just quickly say, hey, this isn't going to work out, part ways. If somebody's been with you a long time, been a great performer, and all of a sudden they fall off, that's when you take them out to lunch. You say, hey, man, what's been going on? What's that? This is what we've been seeing over the last few weeks. You hadn't seemed happy. We've had some little performance issues. You got in an argument with a team member the other day. Whatever it might be. Tell me what's going on. And sometimes they might say, I don't know, I got a lot going on at home, or I got, I don't know, I don't know if I enjoy this job anymore. I've been doing it for 2 years, whatever. So you have that conversation, and you say, well, I'll tell you what, I get it, man. I get it. You've been out here. You've done amazing stuff for us for the last 2 years. What about if we get you up on a paid vacation? Take a week. We'll pay you what you normally earn over a week, paid vacation, or a few days anyway. Maybe it's not a full week, but take some time. Go to the beach, go to the mountains, hell, to sit at home, whatever, and think about, is this something you want to continue doing, or do you want to look for another job? And if you want to try something else, hey, you can come back and work for us. If you just give us your all and give us the effort we've been accustomed to over the last couple of years, I will give you a glowing job reference. I'll help you find another job. But we can't continue going on the path that we're going right now. Something's got to change one way or the other. Those conversations help out a ton. Early on, get rid of them. If it's been around later, you have that conversation. What question we got there?
We got 2 comments. One from Bay Hauling has a bit of a rough situation. He just had his first claim. It was a dog bite. It wasn't serious, but he said it's been a hassle to deal with. And Roy Nickel says they are talking with a local driving school to both road test prospective hires as drivers and to teach TLs and provide annual refreshers to all drivers, which he was surprised is much cheaper than he anticipated, and the insurance company is delighted.
Yeah. And those are great points. That's something. So right now we check out everybody out on our own, but that's definitely something we've explored in the past. And you're right, it's not that expensive to go through one of these driving schools. Workers' comp loves it, as well as your automobile insurance loves seeing that certification. Great comment there. And Juan, sorry about your dog bite, man. All right. So the key thing here, one of the things I've learned with business, I talk about it often, is patience is key. Patience is key. You are not going to assemble an amazing team immediately, but over time you will. If you always are hiring, and if you treat it like a sports team, and you consistently do that over a period of time, and guys, this could be as short as 3 months, as long as a year to 18 months to actually put a good crew together, you'll do it if you follow those principles right there. If you're fair to your people, if you make sure negativity doesn't slip into your organization, you will put together a great team. And don't step your foot off the gas on hiring. Again, always, 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 always be hiring. Quick little note right here on most junk removal companies that are established, your average employment length is 14 months. Now, you will have guys that are longer. We've got guys that have been with us almost 5 years now. Now, in this case, both of them, after about the 2-year mark, left, realized, hey, grass isn't necessarily greener on the other side for them, and they came back, and they've been amazing ever since they came back. So I have noticed a general trend. The 2-year mark is when a lot of times, and this isn't just junk removal, but especially in junk removal, that's when you start to see a little drop-off in performance, and that's when that conversation needs to occur. And sometimes, a lot of times they leave. If you end it well, if you end their employment well, a lot of times they come back, and then you don't see that 2-year drop-off again. So these guys right here, they left after about 2 years. They came back after about 6 months. They've been with us another 2.5 years. Very, 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 very excellent individuals, excellent people, excellent workers. We haven't seen that drop-off. So average is 14 months, though. You're going to get a lot of guys that work 6 months to a year. That's going to drag your average down. And then you get a handful that work 2, 3, sometimes 5 years. What kind of question you got?
All right, we got 2. One, Rich and Nick say, hey, Lee, is there any way we could set up a weekend we could fly out and maybe take a day to see the call center and get an hour or two one-on-one with you?
Yeah, we can work that out. Just email Shane to kind of set some of that stuff up. That'd be perfect.
And then you've got Roy says, do you see a difference between employment lengths for drivers /TLs versus navigators /labor?
TLs are going to be a little bit longer, but not significantly longer. Though sometimes, like I said, the nav end of things, we try not to have just navs. We want people that that can do it all. All right, so Another little kind of lesson here. Never put somebody on a pedestal. This is something you'll learn the hard way. Never put an employee on a pedestal. That does not mean you don't recognize and reward amazing work. But everybody is replaceable, including you. You're replaceable. You can go out and hire somebody to do exactly what it is that you do. If you think anything different, your ego's too big and you need to be brought down to size. Every single person. If I wanted to, I could find somebody else. Somebody's been successful in junk removal. I could teach them how to be a good cameraman. They could come in. They could do this show. I'm replaceable. Some people are harder to replace than others, but I'm replaceable. Matt Mary over here, I wouldn't want to have it happen because he runs this show amazingly. He's replaceable. I'm replaceable. He's replaceable. Everybody here is replaceable. You're replaceable, and you want to make sure that people don't forget that. But at the same time, if they're doing great work, you recognize them around their peers. Hey, this customer just left an amazing review about Nick. Nick did an absolutely awesome job, and you let everybody in your organization know it, and you probably present them maybe the $50, $100 gift card or some sort of bonus. You publicly recognize him to his peers. People dig that attention. But you don't say, you know what, without Nick, there's no way possible we could run this business. And, you don't start just acting like Nick is the one that's actually, and Nick, I'm just picturing your name randomly. I know you're watching this. I'm not actually talking about you. But if Nick's an employee, you're not just like, you know what, this business doesn't run without Nick. You don't like constantly just pump him up with that because one, he's going to get a big head, and two, everybody else is going to, it just creates this weird type of chemistry in an organization. It's almost like if you're not careful, you can get to the point where you have people that are loyal to Nick and people that are loyal to you. So you always need to be in control. It needs to be known you're in control even when you're delegating things to other people. Don't put people up on pedestals. All right. We talked about not allowing negativity. Negativity spreads like cancer, if not even worse. Don't create an environment where people believe they cannot be fired. That doesn't mean you just fire for the hell of it. Because if you're doing this all along, if you're holding people accountable, you're having meetings, you're saying, hey, this is what's expected. You document this, by the way, also. So anything on hiring needs to be, anything employee related needs to be documented. Because if you ever have to let somebody go, you want everything, dates, occurrences, documented. Generally what we do is we fill out, after we speak with the person, we recap the conversation. We say, hey, this is the conversation we had. This is what was discussed. Again, just to outline, this is what you did wrong. This is what is expected moving forward. Sometimes we say if this isn't corrected by a certain date, your employment will cease to exist. Other times we're just outlining it, and we actually send that to them in an email, because by shooting it to them in an email, there is a record of that communication. Then we stick it in their personnel file. So every single thing, hey, if you have a little teaching lesson with somebody about, let's just say they're washing the truck wrong, that doesn't need to be documented. But if they consistently wash the truck incorrectly and the thing isn't clean because they're doing it wrong, then it's like, hey, we had this meeting. I've told you 3 times verbally already. This is your written warning. You're not doing this right, and it needs to be fixed. Once that's documented there, if you ever have to let that person go, your likelihood of actually having to pay out, or the unemployment commission having to pay out unemployment, goes down significantly, because you can show that you let this individual go for performance reasons. So document everything. Be fair with people. Don't hide stuff. If you're not happy with somebody's performance, hey, be matter of fact. You're not mad, you're not angry. Say, hey, here's the deal. This is what you did. This is the way it should have been done. This is what you did wrong. Send them a documentation. And if it doesn't fix, then you say, you know what? We had this conversation. Listen, man, I enjoy you as a person. You're a great guy. I'm glad to have met you. This working relationship is not working for these reasons. Your employment has been terminated. Here's your termination notice. Then you end it. So that's you got to look at things from a performance standpoint. Try and get emotion out of it, but be fair to people at the same time. Realize, if somebody just has a bad day, you don't want to fire somebody, because everybody has bad days every once in a while, and you could have a really good person. So you be a little patient with them, but you need to address it. All right, so what is the hiring process? The main way we found to get employees here recently is an Indeed ad. In our area, to get a decent number of applicants, we need to sponsor $20 a day. That is $600 a month. But that should give you a good number of applications. Now, here's the other thing. In that ad, we cover the job description, and the things we make sure we cover inside there is the pros and, more importantly, the negatives or the cons. The pros and the cons for this job, and we lead it with the cons. We say, all right, how do you know this job is for you? This job is for you if you know that you are able to withstand hot days in the middle of the sun. Cold days, real cold days, especially you guys up north, Minnesota, all those areas. Cold days. Working in the rain, maybe working in the snow, working in the sleet. Working in dirty, nasty, smelly environments. Think of the worst smell you've ever smelled and times that by 10. Because the first time you go into a house that the air conditioning's been cut off on and it's 95 degrees outside and the power's been cut off. So there's no AC and anything like that. And you walk over and you get to that refrigerator and you're like, all right, this homeowner says, I gotta clean this house out. I gotta clean this fridge out. And you open that fridge and the most rank smell you've ever imagined hits you like a wall of bricks. You are almost that descriptive in that job ad. Because any of us that have ever done junk removal know when you open a fridge, the key to cleaning out that fridge is you don't breathe. Or you put a respirator on. That's probably the easiest thing. But you know, sometimes I just tell people, hey, you know, key to cleaning out fridge, open it up, don't breathe. You just sit there and just clean the stuff out. Don't think about what you're touching. Like, yeah, there's little maggots, you know, crawling around over here, and there's mold, all this. You can't think about that, man. You just got to reach in there and you just start grabbing, man, sticking it in a bag, and you keep moving, because you're gonna smell nasty stuff in here. So you let them know that. You let them know that in the job ad. You let them know that sometimes you're not gonna have the best customers in the world. Most of our customers are great. Sometimes you're gonna have customers that you're gonna have to bite your tongue. You're gonna have some long hours sometimes. You get in the middle of summer, you're gonna be working 12 hours, 14, 15 hours a day sometimes. Hey, the nice thing, we get to the pros, you get a lot of hours in just a few days. So if I was working for somebody, I'd love 3 12-hour shifts. Give me 36 hours in. It's the third time I've thrown that pin today. Give me 36 hours in, and I'm happy. So that's a pro. What's another pro? A pro is this is a fairly low-stress job. You do a lot of driving, like something like over 20% of your time. I think it's like, we actually did that calculation once. It's like 20-25% of your time, your truck team member's time is actually spent on the road driving. It's not stressful. You see new places. You know, that's great. But on the negative end of things, you got bugs. You got wasps. You're going to get stung sometime. You're going to be operating around some spiders. You're going to see little snakes just kind of pop its little evil beady eyes out at you every once in a while. You know, you're going to have this type of stuff that's going to happen, and you cover that in the ad. Why is that? Because on Indeed, people don't, 95% of the people don't even read the ad. They just click apply, whatever. I've never actually applied on a job on Indeed, but I think it's like apply. I think people just kind of click the button all the time, and it sends the resume out. Because on Junk Doctors, we've got people applying for medical jobs. They're like, all right, you know, you're a doctor. And it's like, well, you can come doctor on me, but you're probably not going to work on what the only thing we got working on around here. So it's probably not the type of work you want. So the one thing we do is we do that in the ad. We cover the negatives first, then we cover the positives. And here's the other thing. Otherwise, you're going to waste so much time by actually reading resumes, every single resume that comes through, and responding. Have them call you right there at the very end of the ad. You say, listen, if you actually want to work here, do not click that apply button. Or if you do, you click that apply button and you pick up the phone, this old-fashioned telephone, and you give us a call. And we're going to talk to you. We're going to do something nobody does anymore, man. We ain't going to text. We ain't going to email. We're going to have a good old-fashioned phone conversation. And we're going to ask you some questions like, what's your driving record like, man? What kind of, anything going to show on a background check? Can you work long hours? Are you a friendly individual? You know, it's just basic questions. And what's our intention here? What we want to find out from this is this a good person? Is this a reliable individual? And if that's great, here's the next thing we do. Tentative. I like that word. Tentative job offer. Why is this? Listen, right now, this is an employee's market. Back when we started in 2012, man, we could do anything. We could have people be like, hey, all right, we could have people do like little like jump rope and jump through hoops and just all kinds of crazy stuff. I mean, just for pure entertainment, we can say, all right, let's have this guy do this. Everybody's looking for a job. Now it's the other way around. Now we have to jump through hoops to get people. So what we found though is a tentative job offer. A lot of times they quit looking at that point. What we say tentative though is, hey, I need 3 references. And actually call those references. Because listen, you got a pretty dumb individual if he gives you 3 references that aren't going to tell you something nice. So he's either like never done anything nice in his life, or he's pretty dumb, one or the other. So 3 references, call them up. Hopefully one's a prior employer. That's always the best. As long as it sounds halfway decent, that's good. All right, the next thing, do a little internet search. Get on and check out check out his Facebook page. Get on FaceSpace and Twitter, internet search. Just go on Google, type in so-and-so arrest, and if he's been arrested before, his old mean mug's gonna pop up there. You can check it out and see what he did. If it was 10 years ago and it was a drug possession charge, or 5 years ago it was a drug possession charge, or maybe hell for some of y'all if it was last month it was a drug possession charge, you ain't gonna worry about it as long as you don't show up to work high or drunk. If it was child predator, forget about that guy. If it was something violent, if it was larceny, any type of theft, you're going to avoid that individual. If it's an underage drinking ticket or drugs, that's up to you. You know, if it's a good guy, we're going to still interview him. If he's a good guy, we'd be like, hey, what you do at home is up to you. But when you come into work, you're ready to work. You're not high, drunk, whatever. And we've been pretty good with that. So the next thing after that is an in-person interview. We tell them on that tentative offer, hey, I got to like you in person too. Because we ain't one of those employers that are talking about just going remote, working from home in your pajamas. In-person interview. We're going to do an in-person interview because you got to look like a decent individual, and you got to be able to present yourself well once you show up to customers' homes. So we're going to do an in-person interview. It's basic interview questions, guys. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Why do you want this job? What do you know about us? Where else did you interview? Why did you interview there? What kind of jobs have you had in the past? Can you successfully lift up 100 pounds by yourself? All right, if that goes well in this in-person interview, we'll either set them up on like Work Steps, which is a program that we've got where it's a company, they're nationwide. They'll set up a physical test for your employees. We like sending them there because they're going to say, figure out, can they lift, something up into the truck? Can they lift stuff heavy enough? They'll try and figure out if there's any physical impairments, stuff like that. They take away some liability, and it's not that expensive. I think we pay $150 or maybe $200 every single time we're looking to hire somebody. So this is the last step. We like them as a person. Everything else checks out. We send them to Work Steps. If Work Steps says, hey, you know what? You got yourself a winner. And we sit there, we onboard them, we put them to work hauling junk. So that is that's it right there, guys. That is the process. There's nothing revolutionary here. So what's the difference? The difference is we have just realized and relegated ourselves to the drudgery and the dread and the misery that we're always hiring. And then once you accept that this part of your life is never going to get better, you got a winning combination going on. What kind of question we got?
First question is from Juan Bay Hauling. He says, how will an ex-employee or unemployment affect the employer?
Well, also, Juan, you're in California, so I don't know. I mean, everything in California is against employers, and it's on the employee side. So I'm not 100% familiar with California laws, but as a general rule, in the United States of America, in the 49 states of the United States of America, California's its own little deal out there. In the 49 states of America, for the most part, you have got, and guys, I love California. I rag on it all the time. Take me down to San Diego. I love San Diego. I wouldn't want to live there because I don't want to pay 13% or 14 or 50, whatever it is the state income tax is now. I love California. I just think they're 50% of the people there are nutty. But the great, all right, so the way most of the country works is if you let somebody go 4 calls, it does not hurt your unemployment. The issue comes in is that if you say, all right, no, this person was let go because of this reason, if that's not clearly documented, if there isn't video evidence or clear documentation, and it was clear that you gave the employee several warnings and you tried to take help them make corrective action, if that isn't documented, then a lot of times that is actually denied, and you wind up the unemployment commission has to play out unemployment. And much like workers' comp, when the unemployment commission pays out unemployment, it knocks your experience mod, it runs your rate up. It's not the end of the world, unless you're going out there doing mass layoffs, which, there's maybe, I can count on one hand the number of junk removal companies out there that could do a mass layoff to where it's going to just absolutely annihilate their unemployment just about. Because most of the time you're just going to be getting rid of a couple guys. Don't beat yourself up over it. But the best thing I can tell you is document. In California, who knows, it's probably just a crapshoot. You might just have to pay it. But look into it, maybe not. You got anything else?
Yes, we've got Josh Janus says, being a beginner and having a brand new business, how can I get over this fear of getting in legal trouble by not properly documenting income, having proper insurance, or knowing what I can legally haul and dump?
All right, read that out, the first part of that one more time.
Being a beginner and having a brand new business, how can I get over this fear of getting in legal trouble by not properly documenting income, having proper insurance, or knowing what I can legally haul and dump?
So the answer to your question is pretty much within your question. As soon as you possibly can, you need to have proper insurance. And I'm gonna give you more of an answer here too, so don't quit listening to me. But you need, as quick as you can, you need proper insurance. One, you research where everything needs to go. And the dumping stuff, that's pretty easy. For the most part, if you're using a licensed facility, if you're dumping the wrong thing there, they're gonna let you know about it. And oftentimes they're not very nice either. They're like, they're gonna beat you up a little bit, you learn. But C&D goes to, construction debris goes to C&D landfill. Your municipal solid waste, a lot of times furniture and all can go to MSW. Your regular garbage can go to an MSW landfill. Yard waste goes to a yard waste facility. Concrete goes to a concrete recycler. That right there, just use a licensed facility. If you have any question at all, ask the scale house attendant, and you're gonna be good. There's not a ton of legal trouble you can get in there. Now, if you go down the road and you're like, all right, off the side of the road, and you're like, man, there's a really nice ravine, and I'm gonna throw my shit out of this ravine, well, yeah, you might get busted. You might get beat up a little. But if you're doing the right thing, you're good. On the insurance end, good insurance, you should definitely, general liability and commercial auto policy, you should have that. Workers' comp, you should have, but if you don't have, here's the answer. If you don't have a ton to lose, like if you're coming out there and you've been working a $10 an hour job and you're starting up a junk removal business and you have literally no assets, set yourself up a limited liability company. That is your first line of defense, an LLC. Theoretically, they cannot pierce that LLC. They call it piercing the corporate veil to get to your personal assets. But if you got nothing, and I don't know, maybe you don't, maybe you have something, but for those of you that literally, like when I started my business, I had nothing. Sue me. You ain't gonna take shit. Ain't nothing there to get. So, but as you add more stuff, that's when you want to make sure you get ahead of this. So, workers' comp, very important. But a lot of states will allow you to have a couple of employees, maybe 2, possibly 3, without having to get workers' comp. You can do that if you don't. Just make sure you set up a good LLC. Try and be as safe as possible with your guys. I would suggest being on almost every single job, and when you're ready to get off the truck, then at that point, make sure you get workers' comp. Here's something, and as far as not reporting income, answer to that is report income. Pocketing cash, I've never found, you just can't build a business by pocketing cash. Why? Because you're afraid to get so large. And I'll be honest with you, that money gets to be really easy when you slip it in your pocket and you don't have to pay taxes on it. Go ahead, pay the piper, and claim those taxes and work on building your business and doing this thing right, and you're gonna have an amazing business in about 2 years' time. You do it wrong, you might make a little bit of extra money right now, but you're going to cap yourself, and you could face those legal troubles you're talking about. What we got, Matt?
We got 2 more questions. One from Juan. He says, you missed the video training. Where does that come in to onboarding an employee?
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is just getting them, this is like up to the hiring point. So the next thing is, yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, the next thing we do right there is onboarding. So once they've been hired, I mean, all the paperwork, all that bullshit we knock out. And then we onboard them. And with the onboarding, we do our training series. And then we do, I'm starting to run out of real estate here, but Matt, this still on the screen?
Yes.
Training series,
You got another foot.
another foot. I'm not gonna be able to go a foot lower, so we should be good there. All right, so we have the training series and then just some in-person training. So this is like with sawzalls and proper lifting techniques. And then we have on the truck training. So on the truck training, after they've gone through and they've been certified on all 55 videos on the training series, they've gone through the in-person, and I want to do that for the entire show. That'd be an interesting show. Pass out over here. On the truck, then they go on the truck. They're a third team member on a 2-man crew, and it is up. We have certain people that are certified to actually train new hires, and it's their job to ease them into actually lifting stuff, carrying stuff. One, from a safety perspective, two, to make sure they're not damaging customers' home, and that's pretty much the two things right there. Just from a safety and making sure we're not going to damage home or property, they ease them in. That training can last up to 2 weeks. As the vast majority, a lot of people catch on in 3 or 4 days, and that's 2 weeks of working. So say 6, in our case, 6 to 8 days, because remember most guys only working 3 days, and most part people are good at that point. What else we got?
So the last question is from Roy. He says, what about asking an employee to have their doctor perform a medical to confirm that they're physically able to do the work?
So through work steps, that's good. We've never done it that way. We use this company called Work Steps, and Work Steps does that evaluation. So they have certified physical trainers or whatever like that, and they say, all right, we've put these guys through the paces here. They're good to work. And that's just what we've always done for liability protection. That's a neat idea. I don't know exactly how it would work to have a doctor do that. My thought is a lot of doctors, I could be wrong, this could be a normal thing I'm just not aware of, but I'm thinking from a doctor's perspective, a lot of times they're not going to want to sign off on something like that, because if something does occur, they don't want to be held liable. So Work Steps will take that on for you, though, and there's other companies out there. That is a national company, I believe, though. All right, big thing here. This goes back to always be hiring. Don't be desperate to hire somebody. Hiring is much like a negotiation. You're going to get better results if you have more leverage. It's not that you're negotiating against every single employee, but you're going to be much more selective, and you're going to have better people if you're not desperate. That goes back to always be hiring. Hire ahead of the curve. Understand about every $8,500 for most parts of the country, you're going to need another person. $8,500 in monthly revenue. You start bumping up on that next 7,000, 7,000, go and put a job out open, and it's going to take a month or so to get that person in there. We talked about the pay structure. Overpay at the start. If they don't get to the point they're a TL, knock their pay out, cut their hours back, and Navigators just they don't serve a great purpose in your business. Long term navs, they need to advance the TL. So we are getting ready to wrap, so any last questions, please post in the comments here. I will get to them. We're bumping up on 1 o'clock. I have time for maybe one more question after we wrap here. The last thing I want to drive home here, hiring is can be a bit scary if you've never done it before. Even if you have done it before, it's annoying. It's drudgery. Again, relegate yourself to you're always going to be hiring. This is going to be an unfortunate part of your life up until the point that you build a business up where you can hire somebody to take that off your plate. Up to that point, that's what's going to occur. The other thing is you can't be afraid. When it's time to hire people, you go out and you hire. You say, you know what, this is what I got to do, and you crush that fear. You get out there and do it, because if you wait, you're going to start missing out on same and next day appointments. You're going to burn yourself out. Somebody's going to get injured, and you're going to miss out on even more income. You're also going to burn people out. When you burn people out, somebody might actually get injured because they're being overworked. It's a bad thing all the way around. Make that hire when it's the right time. When it's the right time, make the hire, crush the fear. You're you're going to build an amazing business. We got any last questions before we can wrap there? Hey guys, really appreciate you joining us for today's show. I hope you found it extremely valuable. I'd had about 3 or 4 questions on this over the past week that had kind of popped in. And I'm surprised we've never done a show like this before, because I really feel like it is something that's needed. Those of you watching this, you want to build a great business. I hope you found this valuable. Every Tuesday, 12 noon, you can join us and for Let's Talk Junk with Junk Removal Authority, Lee Godbold at Junk Removal Authority, where we help junk removal business owners make more money and live a better life. See you next week.